Sometime after the end of the Indus River Valley civilization, there emerged in India a new culture. It usually is referred to as an invasion, the Vedic invasion, and the culture that was introduced is called Vedic because the early primary texts, the hymns, religious hymns of this new culture are called the Vedas. Before we look at the Vedic culture, this slide notes various characteristics of the peoples in India previous to the Vedic invasion. The people who had already been there, the indigenous peoples, became subject to the invaders and are known as dasas, slaves in the Vedic literature. Obviously, the invaders
now return
are the ones
to
writing
Hinduism.
The Vedic literature.
What I have here is a list of
But we know or have determined
Sanskrit
that
terms that are
indigenous
key to
religious
understanding
beliefs
Hinduism
that
and even later Buddhism
were around before the invasion include the following.
So let's go through
Animals
them.
associated
Dharma,
with fertility.
that which sustains.
The idea of yoga.
It is the proper order of the
In
cosmos
Sanskrit, it's
and
yoga,
society.
translated discipline.
Dharma includes one's
A belief
ethical
in
and religious duty.
Purity and pollution
and that ethical
ideas.
and religious duty is based on one's
There was,
social caste.
Drainage systems discovered in the Indus
More about that later.
River Valley civilization.
Samsara
And there was
is
a
the
cult
cycle
of the female
of birth
goddess
and rebirth,
who is called later
which emerged
Devi,
around 500
the consort
BC.
of Shiva.
This is the belief
And you can
that
see
we call
the
reincarnation.
Proto-Indo-European
Yoga
linguistic
means discipline, and there are various yogas.
etymology.
Bhakti means devotion,
name.
that is religious devotion to a deity.
Now, the Vedic invaders, in fact, if you go to the next
That
slide,
kind of devotion can include
are
things like pilgrimages.
a branch of the
Karma
Indo-Europeans.
means action. In the famous literary
These
work
Vedic
Bhagavad
invaders
Gita, one must
spoke
act according
Sanskrit,
to Dharma,
which is an Indo-European language,
not being concerned
They called
about the fruits
themselves
thereof, but giving them
Aryans,
to Krishna,
which means
a form
noble,
of bhakti. Krishna is a
and may in
deity.
fact be
This is how one
related to the
escapes the
term
bondage of karma.
Iran. They came
Karma,
in
of
with
course,
chariots,
plays into
not
the
solely.
whole cycle
but,
of
they
birth and
They had the
rebirth.
chariot technology, and the
Then there
chariot
is
is an
moksha,
Indo-European
which is the
innovation,
release from samsara,
which
the release
the
from the
Hittites were
cycle of
famous
birth and rebirth.
for using.
And this is the goal. Often
Altogether, then,
in
the Indian
various,
subcontinent was invaded
Indian
by
religious expressions.
Indo-European.
The Aryan invaders brought their social hierarchy beliefs. This is known as the Varna system. Varna means color. Wherever one is born, that is one's dharma, and one has a duty associated with that place of birth. When I say place of birth, I mean as far as social status, social caste. And that birth was determined by one's karma and samsara. That is one's action in a previous life or lives. Here are the castes ranked and what their duties involve. And of course these can be, as far as the duties, far further expanded from what I have here. At the top are the Brahmins. Traditionally, these were the priests and the scholars who maintained the cosmic order, often through sacrifices. All society is directed towards supporting the Brahmins. Below them are the Kshatriyas, the warrior kings, and later we'd know them as politicians. And then there are the Vaishyas, the merchants, those involved in commerce, and doctors and lawyers, what we might call the middle class. And note, these three are separated from the others. Again, traditional Vedic belief has things in threes, often. Below the Vaishyas are the Shudras, the serfs, peasants, farmers, manual laborers. And then finally there are the untouchables, the outcasts. Only the first 3 castes can go through the ceremony to be twice born. We covered Vedic religion, and as it developed into what we today know as Hinduism, we saw that the Varna system, the idea that one is born into a certain status, and that determines one's life. There were a number of protest movements, and I've listed 3 here. There were others, but these are 3 important ones to look at as far as being famous. These protest movements emerged in India, and they rejected the sacredness of the Vedas, and thus rejected the caste system. But they held to the doctrines of samsara and karma, that is, the cycle of birth and rebirth, and that one's rebirth is based on karma, action. There's Jainism, where Mahavira was the founder there, which taught ahimsa. The Jains are still around. They don't make up a very numerically significant population in India, but they are highly regarded. Ahimsa is the teaching of non-injury, non-violence, thus vegetarianism and respect for life. Gandhi's mother was a Jain. Sikhism, founded by Guru Nanak, which is rather late in time, in the Punjab, northern part of India. It is neither Hindu nor Muslim, but is influenced by both. It holds to a monotheism, just one God, and downplays ritual. It asks, "Why go searching for God in the forest? I have found him at home." From Hinduism, Sikhism inherited the ideas of karma and samsara, but from Islam, the idea of one God. But in Sikhism, it's a more immanent God, a closer God in a sense, than in Islam, where God is, Allah is very transcendent. But what we want to really look at here is Buddhism. Siddhartha Gautama Sakya, the Buddha, who sought an escape from the troubles of physical existence. Some thought he was an incarnation of Vishnu. Buddhism is against Brahmin privilege and dead ritual. Buddhism lacks a higher divinity. Buddhists may not believe in any God. It desires, like so many other Indian religious expressions, an escape from the cycle of birth and rebirth, samsara, and the escape from it in Buddhism is called nirvana. Fierro, unfortunately, uses nirvana for escaping samsara for Hinduism, but there I gave you the term moksha. Nirvana is best left for Buddhism, which is a cessation of existence. Old school, we can say, we use terminology today of Buddhism, is Theravada Buddhism, which is the kind of Buddhism you find especially, let's say, in Sri Lanka, formerly the island of Ceylon, off the coast of India. In Theravada Buddhism, there is no self, anatman, without an atman. Nirvana is non-existence, often explained as the puffing out of a flame. It is the cessation of existence and the liberation from samsara. Buddhism is against extreme asceticism, that is, putting off of the desires of the body. It seeks enlightenment, following the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And the Four Noble Truths are listed here. Pain is universal. Desire causes pain.
Ceasing to desire relieves pain. Right conduct leads to release from pain. Another school of Buddhism developed, Mahayana Buddhism. And here, the Buddha was elevated to something of a god. Others as well may become enlightened. These are the bodhisattvas. These are people who decide to stick around and suffer a little more as humans in order to teach others the way of enlightenment. Mahayana Buddhism believes, unlike Theravada Buddhism, in some form of afterlife. And so it's not just about living in the here and now and to ultimately cease to exist. In fact, Mahayana Buddhism, which has became very well accepted in Asia, in a sense looks down on the older Theravada Buddhism, calling it the lesser vehicle. Interestingly, Buddhism is not found much in India today, even though it began in India. And this is perhaps due to the emergence historically of a stronger bhakti-directed Hinduism. That is, a devotional kind of Hinduism. One of the most famous pieces of Buddhist architecture is the great stupa at Sanchi in India, because at one time Buddhism was very strong in India, and a picture of it is on the next slide. It was actually